everyone. I'm Jen, the Chief Business Officer over here at EverRise, and welcome to our ecosystem series where we explore the broader DeFi ecosystem with the builders who are behind the scenes. Today, I'm joined by Justin Havins from Polygon. Justin, welcome.
Hey, Jen. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on. It's been incredible seeing everything that Polygon is doing, even in these market conditions. You know, you and I were just talking a little bit backstage about that. But I think, before we dive into Polygon and everything you guys are building over there, I would love to know more about your background and really how you came into the DeFi space. I always think this is an interesting story for folks to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I got into crypto in around 2017. I think I had a buddy tell me about it. And so I bought my first little piece of Bitcoin back in 2017 on Coinbase. And, the market crashed, of course, back then. But that's kind of when I started to dig in a little bit. I kind of got caught up in the hype. And then I kind of wanted to find out what all this hype was about. And so I kind of dug in on the technology of the Bitcoin and like the proof of work consensus mechanism. And I thought it was just like so ingenious. And then, as we went through like 2018, closer to 2019, I started learning about Ethereum and smart contracts and how you can have these financial contracts that automatically execute based on autonomous code. And that just, I'm a traditional finance person. I was a commercial banker for many years. And that thought just kind of blew my mind a little bit. And then I started digging into Ethereum, and then DeFi summer happened. And I started thinking, I was like, I need to start investing in these DeFi protocols, right? Like automated market makers. So decentralized exchanges, things like Aave, which was called ETHLend at the time, I think, and then like Compound, like all these borrowing and lending protocols where there's no middlemen, there's no counterparty really. Like the counterparty is the code, I guess, if you really had to pick one, but that I don't even think that really fits. And I just kind of got caught up in it, started working. Well, and then, so I was like, it's hard for me to keep track of all of these DeFi protocols and which ones I want to invest in. And then I started looking for, I was like, it'd be really awesome if there was an index that just held all of these DeFi protocols in it and I could just invest in that index. And then I found one, the Index Coop or the Index Co-op, however you want to say it. They had that product where, it's same thing based on smart contracts. It's a DeFi index that rebalances, and that was kind of my foray into working with the Index Coop. And then I started hosting a podcast for the Index Coop. I did about 45 episodes for them, and I was doing a little bit of like marketing and business development for them as well while
Oh
doing
my
my
God.
traditional finance
I
job.
can't even
And
imagine.
yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot. But it was fun, and I really enjoyed it, and I made a lot of good connections working there, and I met some of the DeFi people over at Polygon. And when they offered me a job, it was a no-brainer because Polygon's values and it just aligns with exactly that I was looking for in the if I were to go full time, which I am now. So that's kind of my background and how I got to where I am today.
I think it's always really interesting when folks are coming over from like traditional finance into DeFi because I think like there's so much speculation, especially from retail folks, people who aren't even invested in crypto, that a common question that like even my own family asked me, they're like, do you really think that this could be the future of like our economy and the future of finance? And it's like, well, why wouldn't it be? Money hasn't really changed over the past several hundred years. And like as this world is innovating and evolving, like our financial systems need to evolve with it. So that's incredible. I didn't come from a finance background at all. I actually came from more of like a creative content background. So it's been a bit of a learning curve for me as well. And it's funny, I actually started investing in crypto in like 2014, 2015. I started my career.
Oh, wow.
I was early. I was early when Ethereum was dirt cheap. But I started my career in virtual reality. And so I always just like gravitated towards like new technologies. And so I remember hearing about like, oh, like blockchain technology, this public ledger transparency. And to be honest, like I didn't fully understand it. I was just like, oh, seems cool. Like I'm down. Like let me buy some ETH, let me buy some Bitcoin. Unfortunately, I did not make it through the crash of 2018, but ultimately wanted to come back to this space and I feel like really understand the tech behind it. And then that's how I kind of started to dig into DeFi. And speaking of DeFi, you know, like what are your current thoughts on the landscape and like where do you see it going? And I would say let's break this up in the next 5 years and the next 10 years because I feel like there's a lot that can happen in 5 years and even more in 10.
Yeah, I think, as with bull cycles, things get a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like the 2017 bull cycle was, ICO mania, right? So you had a lot of ICO tokens that didn't really do anything, and it was 99.9% of them were scams, right?
Yeah.
But there were some true, really good projects that came out of that, like MakerDAO, and I think Aave and Synthetics all came out of that as well. Maybe Bancor. There's so many like OG DeFi protocols that came out of there, and I think we saw something similar this time, right? I think we saw a lot of DeFi 2.0 protocols, which were like really good, and they had like a lot of innovating new like tokenomic structures and protocol-owned liquidity was very interesting, and I thought Alchemix was fascinating with its self-repaying loans based on the the interest that you make on the collateral that you deposit. I thought that was really interesting, and then I think there was also this narrative during the bull market that kind of came out, this most recent bull market, that users don't care about decentralization. And I think that in the height of the bull market, like that was probably true, right? And I think there were a lot of people who were depositing their funds into companies like Celsius or Voyager or all these like centralized exchanges or centralized custodians, and with the promise of getting like a very high yield, and like even Celsius like marketed itself as like unbanking yourself, but like it just never really like made sense to me, because if you're trusting another company or individual with your assets, like you're not really unbanking yourself, right?
Exactly. You're just like
And
translating your TradFi banking into centralized banking, more or
right,
less.
and
It
I
doesn't
think
really
it's
do
yeah,
anything for you. Yeah.
yeah, it's like they're using DeFi in the back end, like theoretically, but you don't know that, right? Because you don't have the advantage of like having open source protocols that you're putting your money in. Anyway, so all that to get to like where we are today, and I think we've seen a return to the blue chips, right? I think if you look at Curve, Aave, MakerDAO, Compound, Synthetics, like on Polygon, you've got protocols like QiDAO that are Polygon native. Like all of these survived and worked exactly how they were supposed to. And there was also this thing where like Celsius filed for bankruptcy recently, but first they had to pay back their loans to, um, like I think it was Compound is where they had most of their loans out to. They had to pay those loans first before they filed for bankruptcy, which I think is like very telling, and it's a very interesting like case study for how DeFi actually works. Like DeFi gets paid first before any other creditors, and that's interesting to take into account. So that's kind of where I see now. I think we're kind of, in this bear market, we're seeing like a return to principles and a return to like fundamentals and basics, where I think people need to start focusing again on decentralization. I think users and developers and investors should all care about decentralization and self-custody and transparency in the form of like open source protocols. Like that's what I'm seeing right now. And okay, like where does DeFi go in 5 years? Oh my gosh. It's like it's hard for me to project what DeFi is going to look like in 3 months. For me to project out like 5 years, I think we're going to see a lot more adoption. And I think a lot of that's going to be driven by scaling solutions. Polygon is a scaling solution provider for the Ethereum blockchain. And I think that as we start to scale, that's going to bring in more users. And as we start to see improved user interface and user experiences, UI, UX, I think that's going to drive adoption too. And in 10 years, I honestly don't know. It's just that's so far out for me. I don't know what my own life is going to look like in 10 years. Um,
No, I mean,
much
that's
less
fair
like
enough.
the DeFi and crypto space. But those are kind of just my general thoughts on the market, I guess.
Yeah, well, and I think like to your point, right? It's hard to even predict what this space is going to look like in the next 3 months. I don't think anyone foresaw like what Celsius and Voyager closing, and I think to your point, we are starting to see this shift from like CeFi over more into DeFi, because like you said, these CeFi organizations that were massive, that quite honestly, like most people didn't even think that they could fail because they've been around for several years and are kind of like the legacy names in this space. And like seeing them kind of fall, and all of a sudden that's sparking more conversations of like, not your keys, not your crypto. Like for the first time in, I would say, the past year and a half, I've seen a massive movement, even just on social, to be like, get your crypto off of exchanges, get your crypto off of centralized organizations. So I think like it'll be interesting to see if like that fad keeps going and it gains more momentum and like we get more people educated within the space. But like when we think about mass adoption, right, and like how scaling solutions fit into that and how like better UX UI like integrates into that, I still feel like there are some pretty big barriers to the space, especially for folks that aren't even anywhere near Web3, right? So kind of like if you were to zoom out a little bit more, right now, what do you think the biggest barriers of entry to the space are, especially for folks that have like no experience investing in crypto at all?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Uh, for me, I think it has to do with UI, UX. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the biggest things, like one of the biggest barriers to entry in my mind. Because like if you really want to get one of your friends like truly into the DeFi space or the Web3 space, and not just like holding their purchasing assets on Coinbase and like
Yeah.
having Coinbase custody those assets for them, like there's a lot of steps, right? I mean, you've got to get them to withdraw money from their bank account, deposit it in the Coinbase, and then swap their US dollars for Ether, and then they've got to send that Ether to a Ethereum wallet address. By the way, they've got to set up a MetaMask, and you probably have to explain to them what a seed phrase is and what a private key is. And then if they want an even better user experience, because transaction fees on Ethereum they can be high, and that's part of the user experience, in my
Yeah.
opinion. They're going to have to bridge those assets using their MetaMask wallet. They're going to have to bridge those assets to a chain like Polygon to have a low cost fee environment to interact with, right? And
Yeah.
if they want to, and then they're going to have to like add a new RPC to their MetaMask wallet, and then you have to explain to them like how switching between RPCs, and I might be getting like a little too technical here, but even just like, I mean, it's all part of the user experience, right?
Yeah, it's like we can call it like a 20-step process from like having no crypto at all the way to like getting crypto in an actual DeFi wallet, and then even more steps, like you said, if you want to bridge over to something like Polygon.
Yeah, and I mean, we are seeing improvements there. I think like there's a lot of applications. Like I know Zerion is doing something very cool where they're kind of just like integrating all these DeFi applications, and it's totally self custody,
Yeah.
but you kind of have this interface where it looks like everything's on the same spot, right? It's just like an
Right.
app on your phone, and I know that like Streams is doing that as well, and I think Coinbase is going to start integrating Polygon withdrawals directly, so you don't have to go from Coinbase to Ethereum to Polygon. So I think we are seeing like very small and slow improvements there, but it's just going to take some time, unfortunately.
It's funny because I almost feel like time is also subjective. Like, a week in DeFi can feel like a year sometimes. So I feel like it'll happen faster than we think. Like maybe we'll see it in the next 5 years that it becomes much more streamlined, to get into this space, which I think would be awesome. Speaking of which, let's like dig into Polygon. Like tell us about what Polygon is all about, what you guys are building over there. And you know, we do have folks that come in who aren't the most technically savvy. So even if you could kind of go super high level and break down an L1 versus an L2, and then tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So on the highest level, Polygon's goal and mission is to scale Ethereum. And so what does scaling Ethereum mean? Kind of like what we talked about previously, you know, gas costs and transaction costs on Ethereum are they can be very expensive, and that can be a barrier to entry as well, something that we were talking about. And, you know, we want users to have the ability to self-custody their assets and have this financial freedom that, you know, that you and I have, Jen, you know,
Yeah.
with our wallets that we're using. And the best way to do that is to scale Ethereum, which means that we need to allow for more transactions to be processed on the Ethereum network at a lower cost. And that's very difficult to do because, so the way like a blockchain works, essentially, I'm going to get very basic here, is a block is just a group of transactions that have been submitted to the network, right? And there's only a certain amount of transactions that can fit inside a block, okay? And so if the block is full, but you really want your transaction to be in the next block, you have to pay a little extra money to get it in that next block. And that drives up fees over time on you know, just times of like high network activity. Okay. And so what Polygon can do, like a layer 2, which Polygon has like 7 different scaling solutions right now, and we can get into those a little bit later. What we do is you put your assets on Polygon, and we're interacting, you know, you can submit transactions on the Polygon network, and we're batching these transactions down to the mainnet, right? So users, in a sense, share the cost of these transactions, and then the Polygon network protocol submits those down to the mainnet, which is Ethereum's mainnet, to, you know, you can have all those transactions in one little block instead of multiple transactions over multiple blocks. So it helps with the speed and cost effectiveness of the Ethereum blockchain. And there are multiple ways that we can do this. And we can get into that a little later, but that's kind of the basics between a layer 1 and a layer 2. And the reason, I mean, there are ways that you could scale Ethereum to reduce the transaction costs and make the transactions process quicker. But what you do there is you're losing out on the security of the network. That's in, I don't know if you want to get into detail on that, but that's like one of the trade-offs. I think the developers of Ethereum and the Ethereum community and us at Polygon, we believe that the main base layer should be the most secured under all circumstances, which is what Ethereum is. And I think eventually Ethereum will be the global settlement layer for the new digital financial infrastructure that we are creating. And that's Polygon's job, is to help us onboard the next 1 billion users to the Ethereum network through scaling the blockchain.
Yeah, I love that. And it's also just like one of those things where so much is already built on top of Ethereum, and so much more will continue to be built on top of the Ethereum network. And so being able to leverage Polygon to build on top of Polygon while simultaneously really building on top of Ethereum, it's so important. Like, I love that mission of like, we want to onboard like the next billion users onto ETH. And I think that's very, very awesome. And I have no doubt that Polygon's going to get us there. Let's go ahead and like dig into a little bit more about the scaling solutions. And I know you guys had some pretty big news recently, especially with like the ZK rollup testnet. And I'd love to dive into that as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, so Polygon currently has now or is developing 7 different ways to scale Ethereum, 7 different scaling solutions. Not all of those are layer 2s, but we just like the term scaling solutions in general. So, well, I'll try to go down the list real quick if I can remember them. So we've got the Polygon proof of stake chain, which if you're using Polygon right now and you're on OpenSea purchasing an NFT, or you're, you know, borrowing a stable coin in the Qidao protocol, like you're using the Polygon proof of stake chain, right? And it's kind of like a side chain, but it's like a souped up side chain in the sense that it allows for checks back to Ethereum's mainnet, which provides like an extra layer of security for Polygon proof of stake and the users of the proof of stake chain. Okay. The next one is Polygon Hermes, which has just recently been rebranded to Polygon ZK EVM. So this is our big announcement, right? So the Polygon ZK EVM, that stands for Zero Knowledge Ethereum Virtual Machine. And what Ethereum Virtual Machine means is that it's just all of the code that Ethereum uses, but in a different place, essentially. Yeah. It's a virtual, I guess, copy of the Ethereum code base, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the first scaling solution that ZK scaling solution that is fully compatible with Ethereum. And so what that means, and why we're so excited about it, is that all the smart contracts, developer tools, and wallets, all these developers can use that they were using on Ethereum, they can use on the Polygon ZK EVM as well. And the ZK EVM harnesses the power of ZK proofs to lower the transaction costs and increase the throughput of the blockchain. Throughput means like the amount of transactions that you can do. And so the big announcement today was that we were open sourcing our code for developers to use, right? And it almost like a proof of concept in a way, just kind of show that like we're on the road to ZK EVM equivalents. Mm-hmm. And right, because you have like, there's two different types. Like you've got EVM compatibility, which means it's compatible with Ethereum smart contracts in Ethereum code, but there's like maybe like certain little differences. And what we want is we want EVM equivalents on our ZK EVM, which means you can pretty much just copy and paste your code from Ethereum to ZK or the Polygon ZK EVM, and it'll run just faster and with lower transactions.
Better and more efficient, it sounds like. It's,
exactly. Better and more efficient with while inheriting the security of the Ethereum mainnet. Right. Yeah. So that's like our big announcement. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say what's really cool too about like this idea of having an equivalent as opposed to just compatibility is it sounds like it's almost zero dev work if you've already built on EVM. Like you said, you could just copy, paste code, deploy, which is huge because as you know, dev work, adjusting smart contracts, creating new smart contracts, it takes up so much time and bandwidth. So that's really cool.
Right. Yeah. And there might be some like little nuances here and there, but it's very minimalized. Right. Yeah. So proof of stake, Hermes. We also have Polygon Edge, which is falls into like it's like a modular blockchain structure to where there are certain DeFi applications that would like to build their own chain, essentially. And what we can do here is you can use our Polygon Edge developer toolkit to essentially build your own blockchain and use our validators that we already have to validate those transactions for you. Because I think one of the biggest carries of developing your own blockchain is setting up and getting validator nodes to validate those transactions for you. Yeah. And here you don't have to worry about that. You build your blockchain however you want to, and you can leverage our validator nodes. And we've seen some like pretty interesting, I think GameFi and maybe like the metaverse NFT space will start adopting this quite a bit. I'm not sure how popular it will be with DeFi applications, though we have seen some DeFi applications take some interest in this structure. And so, yeah, it's very unique, and I'm excited to see how that plays out. And so, okay, and then we have Polygon Nightfall is a very exciting one. This was a partnership with Ernst & Young, which is now called EY, that they rebranded. And this is like an optimistic ZK hybrid, right? You've got optimistic rollups and you've got ZK rollups, and this is kind of a hybrid between the two. And this is focused on like enterprises, because through all of these scaling solutions, we've talked to app developers, Web2 companies, traditional like S&P 500 companies, governments, nonprofit organizations, and all of them have different, I guess, like scalability and security trade-offs that they're willing to make for their business and for their applications. And so
Right.
This is
It,
one
it
of the
has to be
ways
like a case by case basis, right?
it definitely is, and that's one of the reasons we have all of these different scaling solutions is that you can pick and choose the one that's right for you. And so this is like a privacy blockchain, and so this is focused a little bit more on enterprises because I don't think enterprises necessarily want you to know. Like they've got like regulatory disclosures and quarterly reporting that they have to do, and if all of their information is publicly on the blockchain where everyone can see it, I think that can be problematic for them. And so this is like one of
Yeah.
the solutions we're working with EY on that. Some other ones like Polygon Avail, that is a data availability layer where you actually store the data of the transaction that you're submitting on Polygon Avail, which is like a separate blockchain. And that's just another scaling solution that like any layer two could use. Like if Optimism or Arbitrum or ZK Sync or Starkware wanted to leverage the Polygon Avail technology for their rollups or any other layer two rollup that's coming, that's rolling out here in the next year or two, because I feel like it's going to be a big year for layer twos in the next couple of years. Anyone can use that, and that's another thing. Another point I want to make is that all of these are open source and permissionless. Like anyone can deploy on any of these scaling solutions that we have, and that's really important. And that kind of goes into like some of the fundamental principles of Polygon. So that's one of our scaling solutions. And then the other two I'll just touch on really quick. Polygon Maiden, which is another ZK rollup that leverages ZK Stark technology. And then Polygon Zero, which leverages like this new recursive ZK proof technology called Plonky 2. And that's like, it gets way too technical on those, so I'm just going to not touch on those. But yeah, those are essentially the 7 scaling solutions that we have in development, in beta or live right now.
I know it's hard to pick favorites. We get asked this a lot, but out of those scaling solutions, do you have a particular one that you're really, really excited about in terms of like the implications of what it could have for the space, what it could have for the future of DeFi? Is there one that you're just like super attached to?
I mean, I think it's got to be the ZK EVM that we announced today. I think that, and there were some other protocols that announced like ZK like EVM, like either compatibility or equivalence. But I think that like the ZK EVM is going to be a game changer for Ethereum scaling and just the Web3 and blockchain space altogether. And it's hard to see or to project out like how game changing this is going to be, but I'm very, very excited for this. I think that if you like, you have the ability to leverage the security of Ethereum while having cheaper transactions and higher transaction speed. Like those are like those are the two big things that people get hung up with on Ethereum, right? It's like high transaction fees and slow transactions.
Yep.
And that's here we're solving that, and
Yeah.
it's very exciting. So I think that would be my favorite. I also think Polygon Avail is like super interesting, and I'm interested to see how that gets implemented with other scaling solutions in the future. But I guess I picked 2, so I cheated. Sorry.
So basically, we're going to have to come back on here in maybe a couple of months or a year, and then we can reflect back on it and see how it all went and
Yeah,
unfolded.
absolutely. That would be fun. I'm up for that. Yeah.
So I think something that's really interesting, like EverRise, we're a multi-chain DeFi protocol, and we've started to build quite a bit of a community on Polygon, but we also have, I would say, majority of our community on BNB chain. We have a few folks on Avalanche, Phantom, and yeah, those are the 5 chains we're on. And something that, I've just noticed from not only like observing our community, but other multi-chain communities or projects that offer some sort of like multi-chain aspect is I feel like people are kind of hesitant to explore other blockchains. Like there's a lot of folks that are on BNB who will like maybe dabble a little bit in ETH, and then they get hit with 20, 40, 50, $60 gas fees, and they're like, no thanks, like I'm out. So I guess for DeFi users that are starting to explore multi-chain or, starting to like get the wheels in their head turning about like how can they diversify their assets across multiple networks, like you went through so many amazing features, but if you were to sum it into like, let's call it 3 points, what are the key things you think they should know about Polygon? And like to open their eyes a little bit more to the other chains that exist, if you will.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick three things that make that I think people should focus on about
Mm-hmm.
Polygon is that number one, we are Ethereum focused and we are Ethereum aligned. Like that is very important. We see Ethereum as the global settlement layer for the future of digital finance, and we want to help onboard the next 1 billion users. Okay, I think that's very important to us. The next thing I would say is I think you can really look at the partnerships that we've developed over at Polygon, and we have a lot of stuff with like EY obviously, but Stripe with payments. We've done stuff with DraftKings. We're the only blockchain company to be included in this Disney accelerator program, and I'm not even sure exactly what that is 100%, but it's Disney, so it's like super exciting, right? Like, could you
Yeah.
imagine? I'm not going to speculate on that, so I shouldn't. But I think that our business development team has really worked their tails off to make Polygon very, very special. And I think there's just a lot coming down the pipe. So, one, Ethereum aligned. Two, look at our business development and our partnerships. And number three is kind of what I said earlier. Like, our focus is to bring the next 1 billion users to the crypto space, to Web3 and DeFi and NFTs and the metaverse and everything there. So I think those are the three things that really stand out to me right now. And actually, if I could squeeze another one in there, I would
Squeeze it.
say, yeah, and these are in no particular order. I would just say our dedication to the technology and
Yeah.
the fact that we are developer focused first is, I think that's paying dividends to us right now, like theoretical dividends, not real dividends. But, I think that during the bull market, Polygon, we launched our side chain or the proof of stake chain, and we got some pretty good TVL, but we were just heads down focused on developers and building new tech and finding new ways to scale Ethereum. And now that we're in the bear market, I think people are starting to see all of this hard work that we've been doing actually come to fruition, and that is very exciting for me.
Yeah.
So
Well,
those are
and
the
I think,
four things. So
yeah. Well, I think now that, we are a little bit more in a bear or build market, a lot of the noise is gone. Every time we're in a bull market, it's just, I feel like it's amazing watching projects like really take off. Of course, it's always exciting seeing charts go up, whether you're a developer or just like an investor within the space. But there's always just so much noise around bull markets. And I think like during times like now, people, like you said, we're going back to the fundamentals, right? Like people are starting to see what's important and really understanding the core of decentralized finance, which is awesome. And like speaking of developers and folks that are interested in building in Web3, beyond the Polygon website, where is the best place for them to get integrated into your community? Are you guys like Discord, Telegram? Like if there's someone out there listening and they're all like, hey, Polygon sounds really interesting. Like I want to meet other devs building in the space. I want to kind of start poking around. Where's the best place for that?
yeah, I would say step one is the Discord for sure. We've got a great team on our in our Discord that if you have any questions, whether you're a developer or a user or an investor, whoever you are, come to the Discord and ask your question, and then we'll point you in the right direction. But then you said not to say our website, which our website is polygon.technology. That we do have an additional website that's a little bit more developer focused, and that is village.polygon.community. And that's our Polygon Village, and that's a little bit more developer focused. The DAO is a little bit more involved there, and so that's another great place to get started as well.
That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to know. I didn't even know about the Village site, so I'm definitely going to be checking that out. Before we close this out and you tell us where folks can find you, off the top of your head, I know I'm throwing this one out there.
Okay.
Three tips that you would give to anyone just coming into DeFi, like the three things that you wish knew before you fully got into this space.
Wow, that's a really good question. I would say I think there's a lot of memes that get thrown around that they kind of lose their meaning but are very important. And one of them is DYOR, or do your own research. And I think what that means to me is like, don't just invest your money in something. In disclosure, this is not in financial advice. This is not tax advice or legal advice or life advice or anything like that. But, just like if you're going to invest your money into a protocol, like do your research and like maybe actually see if they are focused on decentralization and self-custody, and if there are centralized parts in the protocol, like where are they, like can users funds be accessed by a multi-sig, or can the what parts of the contracts are upgradable, because there are contracts that can be upgradable and those that cannot be.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And also, don't don't FOMO. Like if you're missing out, like just relax, take your time, like investigate. It takes time to get to know this space, and like better UI UX is coming. But for now, like just make sure you understand what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And then what else? I don't know. I guess just like have fun. Like go buy an NFT and like join an NFT community and like do something that's not as serious in the
Yeah.
DeFi space also, or the crypto space. That's also fun.
Exactly. The folks in the Web3 space are very, very fun, and it's always good to just get in there and meet new friends and like network. Crypto Twitter is so real. Like I've met so many like random people just via Twitter, and it's been really awesome like getting to meet them in person whenever that time comes. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this little chat. Real quick, where can folks find you? And then give us the Polygon website and handles one more time.
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Crypto Texan, at crypto_Texan. And the Polygon handle is 0x Polygon. And then the Polygon website is polygon.technology. So, yeah, come check us out.
There you have it, guys. Be sure to check out Polygon. And if you guys have any comments, thoughts, questions, drop them in the comment section below, and we'll be sure to get those all answered or addressed. And if you want to learn more, we'll also have links in the description. Justin, thanks again for joining us. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. Until next time.
All right. Thanks, Jen. I appreciate it.